Hi everyone, welcome to a special episode of the Australian Rotary Health podcast, The Research Behind Lift the Lid. I'm Jessica Cooper, and today on episode 30, we are pleased to welcome special guest Hadleigh Fischer from the Resilience Agenda. On this podcast, we usually talk to the researchers funded by Australian Rotary Health to talk about the findings from their research. But today we'll be doing things a little bit differently and talking to one of our supporters who helps to make this research happen. So welcome, Hadleigh. It's really great to have you on our podcast, especially having you Zoom in all the way from Switzerland. What time is it over there at the moment?
It's 8 o'clock in the morning, but because I'm fairly used to doing business in Australia, it's not too bad. And in a couple of weeks' time, the time changes. It gets a bit easier to talk to Australia, but it's wonderful to be with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Yes, it's about 6 p.m. over here. So yeah, it's a good time for both of us, I guess. So I guess some of our supporters may have heard about you and your brand resilience agenda if they've had a look at some of our newsletters and social media posts. But I guess for those who may not know about resilience agenda and your wonderful mental fitness diaries, which I've had one of my own and they're just great. I guess, can you tell us a bit about how it all came about?
Yeah, sure. So I was traveling through South America on the way to moving over to Switzerland with my Swiss now wife about 5 years ago now. And I got back to my hotel room after a walk and got back to my phone and had messages from 4 or 5 people who were struggling with their mental health. And I knew that I had the opportunity to make a change in my life, coming over to Switzerland and do something new. And that was the moment I thought, you know what, this thing that I've been looking for has been staring me in the face my whole life. And that's doing something about mental health awareness. My mother, brother, father, lots of friends and colleagues have been affected by poor mental health. I personally haven't been diagnosed, but like most people, have had ups and downs in life. And I wanted to do something about it. And I wanted to build a public profile or a brand, but I just didn't know what to do. And then I thought, well, do I do an app or do I write a blog? And I thought, well, these things have been done. And then I remembered my mum's Women's Weekly Health Diary, this wonderful thing I used to buy at the bank at Christmas time for her when I couldn't think of a better present. And it used to have all these ideas and tips about looking after your health. And I thought to myself, well, why don't I just do that for mental health and make a really nicely designed everyday planner that people use? I mean, a lot of people doubted that people actually use planners still, but they're actually coming back. They're really, really popular.
Yeah, I certainly use them.
And so what we do is we just encourage people with the diary and with the brand to schedule, the things that help look after your mental health, the things that protect your mental health. And there are things we can do that are under our control. Not all of our mental health is within our control, but there are some things we do have influence over. And so the diary just reminds us with exercises and content and different things to prioritize those things. And over the last 5 years, it's gone really, really well.
Yeah, well, it's such a fantastic idea. And it sounds like it's such a great thing for people to do while they're planning their day, just to have a look through and see all these little tips for their mental health. So yeah, that's really great. I know on your website, one of the quotes that really stands out is, imagine a world where people are inspired to think of their mental fitness like their physical fitness. And I think that's probably a really important message, because often, we'll go and see a doctor if we've got a physical illness, and we'll, get involved in exercise as a way of kind of preventing health problems. But it may be quite the opposite when it really comes to our mental health and finding ways to support that and prevent things from getting worse. Do you want to talk a bit more about this concept and how your diaries aim to address this idea?
Yeah, sure. The whole mental fitness idea is, I guess, at the core of our message. And that is that there are things you can do for your mental health to look after them. So if you ask most people what they do for their physical health, they would tell you, I try and eat as best I can. I do a bit of exercise here and then. I do this and this and this. But if you ask them what they specifically do for their mental health, a lot of people wouldn't be able to give you an answer. And that's important to look after your mental health when things are fine, but it's also important to know what works and what doesn't work, or what might make things worse when you're going through a period of recovery. Because one of our big ideas at Resilience Agenda is that you can recover from poor mental health. And I suppose the mental fitness analogy, we define mental fitness as the mindset, process, and strategies for maintaining, developing, and improving your mental health. So the mindset is this idea that your mental health goes up and down, that it's not just illness or well, and that if you're not diagnosed, then there's nothing you need to do. And if you are diagnosed, then you're just 100% broken. There's a much more nuanced way of looking at that. So that mindset is that my mental health can change. It can get better with treatment, with support, with activities, but it can also get worse over time based on what happens to us, or if we just sort of let it go. The process draws on what most people kind of understand around physical fitness. You've got to have a goal. You've got to do it over time. You can't just do it once and sort of expect it to last forever. There are things you can do along the way. You might reach out for professional support occasionally, or coaching, or what have you. It's often best done in a team with support from other people. And this idea that if your physical health were to get worse, we call them injuries. So I found that a really inspiring idea. If you have a physical injury, you might stub your toe, put you out of action for a few days. You might tear a muscle, might put you out of action for a few weeks, and you might need to go and see someone to get some treatment. And sometimes you have a really chronic injury that just doesn't get better, and it really affects your life. And so there's that nuance there. We like to think about it the same way for our mental health. You might have a bad day, which is what a lot of us go through. You might have this going on for weeks and weeks at a time, in which case it starts affecting your life. And you might need to go and see someone about it, or make some changes. And the more you know about those changes that you can make, the better. And sometimes it can be really, really severe, which is what we often think of when we think about mental illness. But it doesn't have to always be terrible. And this idea that, well, if I were to get injured with my mental health, that I might be able to recover in some way, it says something very different about you than if you acknowledge that you've got an issue and it kind of defines you. And that's what stigma is. And so mental fitness just is so much more inspiring and practical and engaging for people, because it means that something can go wrong and you take action, whatever that might be, and you might be able to move back along and improve. Or even if things are totally fine, you can build your resources of mental fitness so that you can take on more stress or build more resilience for whatever life throws at us. And I find that such an inspiring idea. And it builds on some wonderful work by a lady in Sydney by the name of Paula Robinson. She's got some wonderful ideas and writings about mental fitness. And it's just, the people who write to us, and the 20,000 people who use our diaries, they just write to us and say it's just such a great way of thinking about mental health.
Yeah, it certainly does sound that way. I really like the way that you explain that, how, you're not necessarily broken, and there's always that opportunity to get better. And really, even if your mental health is good, you can always, make it even better, or, build up those resources, as you were saying. And it sounds like those diaries really help with that. So yeah, that's excellent. And I think Resilience Agenda's values really align with the values of Australian Rotary Health. And so far, it's been a pretty great partnership, and we've been extremely grateful to receive that $10,000 donation from Resilience Agenda last year. And so that will go into mental health research projects that are similar to the ones that we've been talking about on this podcast. I guess what I'm interested in knowing about is how you first came into contact with Australian Rotary Health. There are many other health charities, mental health charities out there as well. So what made you decide to support Australian Rotary Health in particular?
A couple of reasons. When I set up the brand, I called it a social enterprise. It operates on a for-profit basis, but I wanted a significant chunk of the money we do make, and we're only slowly just starting to make it work now, thanks to the generous support of our supporters. But I wanted to give back financially, even before we started making money out of it, because I wanted to, I think a business that does the right thing by selling in an ethical way and having a product that helps people and can give financially, that's just a win-win-win. My uncle John King was a Rotarian, is still a Rotarian in the Brighton chapter, and he was telling me all the wonderful things that Rotary did. And then I reached out to Greg Ross, former chairman, and he was very enthusiastic with me coming on board and saying, Hadleigh, there's a lot of great things you can do here. And I suppose that the main difference, to answer your question, is the research approach, the preventative approach. Let's try and find out things through research that influence especially young people, so that we can know what helps, what doesn't help, and we can share those findings, and then journalists and other organizations can pick them up and spread the word. And I just love the fact that Rotary has been built on the support of private individuals mainly, and it's so proactive. The work of Beyond Blue and Sane and Black Dog, these organizations are wonderful. I got the sense that they've got government funding and other revenue sources, and then they're very much in the mental illness system, so to speak, in the system. And I wanted to support an organisation that was, I guess, further up the line, trying to make a proactive difference. And that's what our values are: positive, proactive, and preventative. And I think research does that really well.
Yeah, they certainly do align. Yeah, we're really into prevention and early intervention. So yeah, I'm really glad that you did choose Australian Rotary Health, and thank you so much for doing that and for your support. I think more of our listeners definitely need to get their hands on one of their own mental fitness diaries from Resilience Agenda. So if they did want one, where can they find them?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. So we sell our diaries through our website, resilienceagenda.com. More and more organizations are actually buying them as gifts. So at Christmas time, thousands and thousands of them were bought by companies so that they could give to their staff. And one of the things that made me really happy last Christmas was that over 9,000 of them were given away as gifts at Christmas time. So 9,000 people opened a Resilience Agenda diary at Christmas time and thought, oh, this is nice, and got a really relevant and non-judgmental look at mental health, maybe even for the first time. And they thought, oh, this mental health thing's not so bad. Maybe I can engage with this. And just to come back to that point before about you can have a relationship with your own mental health, whether it's good or bad or in between. And so we've got our annual diary. So our 2022 diary is coming out on sale in September, and they tend to get really popular by about November and December. They come in 5 different colors, and we update the content every year. We've actually got, for the first time, a mid-year diary coming out in early May. So it's a 2021-22 financial year diary for those people and organizations that like thinking of things from July to June. And there's still some of our current year diaries available online. And I'd love to help out the special listeners of this podcast with a discount code, 25% off.
Oh, wow.
With the code Rotary25, Rotary25. Pick up a diary for this year. It's not too late to get all the content for this year, but with the code Rotary25, people can get 25% off, which is a good saving, because we don't normally put them on sale. They're so popular.
Well, that's really generous. 25% off would be great for our listeners. So that's Rotary25, Rotary in capital letters or lowercase, or that's fine.
In big letters, capital letters.
Okay. We'll put that out there and make sure that people know the code, and hopefully you get some more sales.
Wonderful.
Yeah, excellent. So I guess, you touched on this before. the idea of mental fitness, as you call it, and this is something that's obviously something that you're very passionate about. And I guess in your own life, is there anything that you personally do to look after your own mental health, or maybe some tips that you can give to our listeners as well?
Absolutely. So we have our mental fitness toolkit, and the mental fitness toolkit is made up of the 5 pillars of well-being and the 5 workouts of mental fitness. So the 5 pillars of well-being, a lot of people might already know these, are sleep, nutrition, movement, connection, and mindset. So for nutrition, I had Felice Jacker on our podcast. So for those of you who are podcasters, we have the Resilient Agenda Radio podcast, and we had Felice on, and Felice was talking about all the things you can do around eating whole grains and vegetables and that kind of thing, and olive oil. She's got this great quote, how many things have you eaten out of the ground on your plate today? And I'm always talking about that with my wife. Oh, this meal's got 12 things out of the ground. And I love that idea. And I think that's one of the things I do for nutrition. Movement. Every day I get outside and do something, whether it's a walk, a run, playing tennis, rolling around on my ball, or a yoga mat. Every day, it's just, I have to do that to feel like the day is going well. Sleep. I prioritize sleep. I think of it as an investment, not an expense, like a lot of people do. And so just reprioritizing that. Connection is so important, connection with other people. And it's been really hard for a year with COVID. But I think as the world starts to open up, we need to reprioritize connection. And we know from scientific studies that it's the number one predictor of well-being and happiness, how good your connections are. So invest in them. And then your mindset, which is about how you think about the world. And I certainly try and read widely and think flexibly around the world. And then in terms of the workouts, optimism, trying my very best when I see something negative in the news or I hear something negative to think, well, what else could be going on here? And then that leads into gratitude. I've got this practice of writing down 3 things every day that went well. And it's such a simple thing, but it helps you to look out for what's going well, even when things might be going badly. Mindfulness. And a lot of people have heard of mindfulness, but think it's a bit weird or woo-woo, and they might have dismissed meditation as something that they haven't got time for. You can do everyday mindfulness. And that's something like when I eat, I don't look at my phone. I don't sit at my desk. I don't watch TV. If I'm by myself and I'm eating, all I do is eat the food and just focus on that, and I eat slower, and it's just a nice experience to slow down. Reframing thoughts, which is our 9th element, and that's basically around, is what I'm thinking helpful here? Can I distance myself from this thought? And, is it useful? And there's a whole range of skills that I try and unpack there. And finally, perspective. It's not all about us. What can I do for other people? How can I understand other people? How can I care for other people? And I think if we put more time and effort into helping others and giving rather than trying to get, our well-being is going to improve in many ways. So the other 10 things that I do, that's what our diaries sort of talk about and give us reminders for. They're my big tips. Plus also try not to spend too much time on my phone and just have good boundaries and habits around that. There's a lady in Sydney by the name of Jocelyn Brewer, who's a psychologist, and she's got this wonderful idea called digital nutrition. The 3 M's of digital nutrition is what I'm looking at on my phone. Moderate is, am I doing it 12 hours a day or 4 hours a day? Is it meaningful? Does it actually help me become the person I want to be or get me towards my goals? And is it mindful? Am I checking my phone when I want to check it, or is it sort of controlling me? There's a few things that I do.
Yeah, just a few. Yeah, there many great tips there. Very inspiring. I really like, what you've said there. And I think there's a lot of research evidence behind a lot of these things that you've been doing and practicing as well, such as, separating yourself from those thoughts and challenging thoughts, trying to reframe. So that's really great. And I'm sure our listeners will really get something out of what you've said as well. So thank you for sharing
I should say that everything we do is evidence-based, comes from the science. We confer with experts on what goes into the diaries and that kind of thing. There's no healing crystals and healing hands in our diaries. We try and keep it really scientific, and that's important because more and more we're working with large companies, and they want to give the best tools to their people. Over the last 2.5 years, we've been delivering a lot of presentations and seminars on mental fitness. It's a great way to inspire people to take an interest in their mental health and to actually start working on it and care for others. And then that has to be based in evidence, because you've got really smart, skeptical people. You can't pull a wool over anyone's eyes, not that we'd want to. And because it is so fact-based and builds on evidence, and we try and turn it into everyday language, that's the mental fitness idea. That's why people have been supporting us. And we've got a whole lot of exciting things that we've got planned for the business this year. We're partnering up to bring out some education courses for online inductions and leadership training. So if anyone has any need for mental health awareness in the workplace, get in touch. We've got an app coming out as well later in the year, which is exciting. And of course, we've got our new diaries as well. So good things are happening. People have been supporting us. The Australian Rotary Health community has been really, really supportive, and we look forward to continuing our ongoing support in the future.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you've got so many things to offer, anyone out there who wants to learn more about mental health or, mental fitness. So that's really helpful. And yeah, it's been really great to talk to you, Hadleigh. And once again, thank you so much for supporting Australian Rotary Health research. I'll definitely make sure to link to that website, to the Resilience Agenda website in the show notes, and put that code in as well if people want to buy a diary. So 25% off, that's Rotary 25. Is that right?
That's correct. And there's also, we brought out a special edition, range of coffee, both caffeinated and decaf, just to sort of give people a gifting opportunity at Christmas time. That was pretty popular. We've got our notebooks as well. So diaries, notebooks, and coffee for the time being. The coffee is only a limited edition, but we're really excited for the mid-year diary and for our next diary. We think it's going to be the best one yet, and we look forward to working with you.
Yeah, well, it'd be great to see what else you come up with as things go on. I guess before we wrap up today, was there anything else that you'd like to add?
Just to the people who are listening to this, obviously the people who listen to this have some kind of interest in mental health awareness, which is great. Many of them are supporters. Many of them may have been working with the researchers or have benefited from it. And it's just that talking about mental health can be inspiring. It doesn't have to be awkward or stigmatized or dull even. We can, share the facts and really, inspire people in a way like we do for our physical health. We don't always have to focus on the worst extremes, although we need to support those people. There's a whole bunch of other people, 2/3 of people aren't getting the support they need, even though they're struggling with a mental ill health condition. And we need to have that conversation with them in a language they understand. Not so much bombard them at the start, but just gently meet them where they're at. And we think the mental fitness metaphor does that really well. There's evidence that that's the case. And I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I can see you're so passionate about what you do, and thanks so much again for sharing. It's been really, really good to have you on our podcast today, Hadleigh.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jessica. You do a great job, and thanks to everyone for listening. All the best. Feel free to visit us at resilienceagenda.com, and look forward to anyone wants to get in touch with us on Facebook or Instagram, LinkedIn, or with me personally. You're welcome. You can also email us at letstalk@resilienceagenda.com if you want to know anything more about what we're doing or any of the background behind what we've said today. We'd love to hear from you.
Excellent. Thanks, Hadleigh. That was the 30th episode of our podcast called The Research Behind Lift the Lid. It is great to hear from supporters like Hadleigh who are helping us on our mission to lift the lid on mental illness by donating to research. If you'd like to do the same, please visit the Australian Rotary Health website to find out how you can support us. Thank you for listening. Please join us again next time.